What do some foreigners disrespectfully do in your country which they have no idea it is disrespect? I used to think this stereotype of Chinese tourists was just that, a stereotype. But I found out, while visiting some of the American national parks out west, that it's totally true. They pull up in these gigantic tour buses and all spill out, talking really loudly and pushing other people aside so they can take pictures, and spend ages taking many pictures of the same view to make sure they get the perfect one. They cut in line, both to take pictures and at souvenir shop checkout lines. You can hear them speaking English to each other, but if you say "excuse me" to try and get past them, suddenly they have no knowledge of English at all. They spit on the ground, sometimes without even looking where they're spitting. They're just awful, and it got to a point where, if my family saw one of the buses pull up, we'd immediately leave the location we were in, because we knew the Chinese tourists would ruin it. And this has been consistent over the last few trips out west, not just on the one trip. Someone probably said this though: the beer policies of going to a mate's house in Australia. The thing I see most people doing is not bringing beers. You are pretty much expected to bring at least a 6-pack to share with everyone else. The next thing is, if you do bring a beer and leave it in your mate's fridge, if this beer has not been drunk, it is theirs. It is similar to fish property laws. The beer belongs to whoever's fridge it is in at the time, and this is subject to change any time. Not paying attention to one of these rules is basically the equivalent of running in, jumping on the table, sticking up the finger and running out. Edit. Some people were asking, so I'm gonna say this: that rule kinda applies to whatever drink you like. It was just popularized by beer. My sister, Irish, went to Dachau and they were being shown the ovens. The place where how many millions of people were burned to cinders to hide the exterminations. My sister's gut was telling her to get the fuck out of there and that this wasn't a good place to be. Most of the group was the same. Going, "Oh okay, what's next? AKA get us out of this room." Then a woman, didn't catch where she was from, in front of my sister sort of leaned into the oven. Sister thought she was just seeing how big/small it was or whatever. The woman took a fucking selfie in the oven. My grandmother, Irish, went to Auschwitz and felt the same "I shouldn't be here" gut feeling. They were showing them around and my nan was struck by the shoes and other things piled high left over from the prisoners. I've seen photos of them, but my nan said seeing the pile rise up in front of you really struck her. Everyone else in the group was snapping photos like it was a lion in the zoo doing a trick. There were also kids playing on the tracks leading to the camp. I know you are technically outside the walls, but Jesus, keep control of your kids or don't bring them. I don't think they do it only in concentration camps. I was in the Vatican City and there were some Asian kids kneeling on the bench, taking pictures and laughing. I felt it was very disrespectful. I've been in others' religion temples and churches and I try to be as quiet and respectful as I can. For many people it's just a touristic destination, but for others are sacred places. For example, when I went to NYC in 2009, I visited Ground Zero. I was about to take a picture when I heard two women saying it is so disrespectful that tourists come here to take pictures of a place where thousands of people died. They weren't talking to me, but I understood their point. For me it was an historic place, but for New Yorkers was a painful souvenir of when their city changed. I put my camera away, and left. The first thing you have to do when visiting another country is to respect their history and the places you are visiting. You cannot have the same attitude in Disney World than in a concentration camp. Foreigners don't realize that not all Canadians are super friendly. Our social norm is to be polite/courteous. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a customer service job where people think I'm flirting with them. EDA, yes, Canadians will do this too, but at a much lower frequency. I am not claiming that Canada is some wonderful place without deeply, systematically rooted issues. I am talking about a specific situation in a workplace setting where managers will give you a verbal warning for not smiling. Since it has been brought up, the uncovering of human remains at residential schools is only a small portion of the genocide and erasure the First Nations people live with today. Many of their communities live without access to potable water and health care, especially mental health. Inuit communities in the territories are 300 times more likely to die from tuberculosis than their colonizer counterparts. I know more about my country's history than the average person, and it is horrific. In Australia, if you are invited over for drinks, always bring your own, and if you put any in an esky/cooler or in their fridge, it's theirs now. Not sharing your grog is also a no-no. Even if they say don't bring any or take it with you, they're being polite and it's a test. If you bring your own and keep it near you in your own esky, then that's yours and it doesn't count. If it's in their fridge and you take it when you leave, is the equivalent of flipping the bird. Many people won't be annoyed if you are new here. Just make sure you catch on within a few weeks or you won't be invited again. EDA. Just to clarify, alcohol here is expensive. A 4-pack of Smirnoff Double Black, vodka lemonade thing that everyone likes, will set you back around $15 to $20. Beer is cheaper and the host will always supply beer and soft drink for everyone. Before getting anything out of the fridge, you should ask the host who brought the drink. You should go to them, ask and thank them for the drink. If you put any in an esky/cooler or in their fridge, it's theirs now. Not sharing your grog is also a no-no. Even if they say don't bring any or take it with you, they're being polite and it's a test. If you bring your own and keep it near you in your own esky, then that's yours and it doesn't count. If it's in their fridge and you take it when you leave, is the equivalent of flipping the bird. Well, that sounds like an odd way to do things to my Finnish brain. If I'm going drinking to someone's place, I'll bring my own, but I'm not going haul a frigging cooler along just to make sure other people don't drink my beers. Here everyone can bring their own and take the remaining bottles with them if they want, and no one will bat an eye. You bought it, you own it, you do with it as you please. The owner has a fridge, there's room in it and it doesn't cost anything to store the drinks in it, so why does storing one's drinks in it change the ownership of said drinks? American here. So I used to work in a high-end chocolate store in a part of my state that had a fairly dense population of people who had just moved there from India. Every single day I had to try and explain to at least 5 people that you can't haggle at the stores here. There was something of a language barrier, so my attempt at explanation didn't always land. Sometime they thought it meant they just needed to be more aggressive about it. Eventually it kind of sorts itself out. I'm not the only store they're shopping at, and I'm sure getting blank looks at Walmart clues you in pretty fast, language barrier or no, but there was a stretch of several months where I was just getting lambasted for selling chocolates that are too expensive while trying to futilely explain that I have no control over the price of anything, I just babysit the register. You not sure it's disrespectful, but I feel like I should share anyway. In Belgium there are more foreigners than Belgians. We have a great system for foreigners to seek shelter here. I'm not sure if they are just drunk and not know what they're doing, or if they're seeking out to disturb everyone. Every night, late at night, even early in the morning, there are at least a few foreigners that stumble through the streets of my very calm neighborhood and shoot whatever they're saying at the top of their lungs. There's kind of an unspoken rule to not disturb quiet neighborhoods, and since we have a lot of elderly people here, it's very disrespectful to disturb quiet places anywhere though. Only time I've really observed anything that was truly disrespectful was littering. I live in Texas and it's a big problem. We drove into Brownsville once and the ditches were just full of trash. People just threw it out of their cars. We had neighbors from, I'm thinking, Central America, accent was different, who would throw parties every weekend, leave the host's yard absolutely trashed. Once they decided to park in our ditch, and when I got up to go to work noticed that they had left about a kitchen trash bag worth of bottles, cans, diapers, plastic cups, and general litter. She just happened to be out picking up her own yard when I was getting back and stopped and asked her to pick it up. She wasn't very happy. Americans have a tendency to act like showmen. See me, hear me. That kind of attitude. I have met so many Americans because I went to an international school for my bachelor degree, and almost every single American had the same tendency to take up a lot of space. They were usually very nice people and 100% oblivious to how their behavior is seen as arrogant and rude in my culture. Even the ones who were very busy apologizing for everything had the same air of accidental superiority complex. It's kinda hard to explain. A lot of them also like to tell us what we are and aren't allowed to say or do, seen through an American lens. It kinda lives up to the stereotype of how Americans think that America is the whole world and that the whole world needs to dance to their tune. I don't blame the individuals. I blame the culture. This may be more regional. But if you visit one of the southern states in the US, don't ask a southerner the following asterisk: do you own guns? Can I see your gun? Why don't you own guns? Have you ever shot a gun? Most of my weapon-wielding kinfolk and friends don't like advertising the details about their ownership, or lack thereof. Either way, some folks feel like it puts a metaphorical target on their back. Oh, S. Kelly doesn't own guns? Let's rob that house. Oh, S. Kelly owns guns? Let's break into that car when S. Kelly goes into the bar. If you're visiting, say, Houston, and you really want to handle a firearm, phrasing is everything. Hey, S. Kelly, is there somewhere nearby I could go to learn how to shoot a gun? Likewise, if you cross paths with a southerner abroad, please don't ask those questions. I've been asked that many times in the UK, India, Dubai, and Colombia, and my stress levels skyrocketed. It's a no-win situation. Asterisk unless you know them very, very well, or if they volunteer the information. Disclaimer: this is based my own personal experiences, upbringing, and preferences. If you go to France and don't speak French and people actually try to talk to you in English and you insult/shame them for not speaking English properly, you are a horrible human being. However, I work at a public place where, pre-pandemic, some French tourists pass through. Of course there are many exceptions, but I've had so many encounters where they would just start ordering in French, and when I said I couldn't understand French, which is one of the only French sentences I know, haha, they just look at you for a few seconds and continue to order in French and actually get mad if you don't understand what they are saying. I love the way the language sounds, by the way, it's beautiful. I wish I'd be able to speak/understand it properly someday. But the rudeness of the tourists really put me off of it for a while, haha. Australian here. I had the absolute best non-conversation with a French man in a tiny town called Moussy, in the Champagne region. I was with my husband and 2 young children and we went to have a drink before dinner. But we didn't realize that the restaurant didn't open until 7 p.m., so I got a little drunk while waiting. A Frenchman at another table also was slightly drunk. Our paths crossed on the way to the toilet and he had a big smile and said something to me in French which I didn't understand. I grabbed his face in my 2 hands and said, I don't know what you just said, but it sounded nice. Then we did a drunken hug and sway together and went on our way. I'm really sorry that people are assholes like that. When traveling, my husband and I always make a point to get phrase books and learn to say and listen for at least key phrases and terms in the language of the country we're visiting. We do it because it's the right thing to do, but doing it has also, seemingly, led to us having vastly different experiences whilst traveling that some of our friends, and that even if our end job is poor, it's well received and helps us connect with the native speakers we encounter. We've ended up getting incredible recommendations for people's favorite restaurants, wine shops, bakeries, or local destinations we might never had found otherwise, and usually some really fun conversations. I would describe each of us as a people person, so being able to engage with and connect with the people where we are visiting is half the pleasure of travel. I've only been to Nice and Paris, but I am really hoping to brush up on some more French and see other parts of your beautiful country. The one French phrase I can say perfectly is I am so sorry I don't speak French well/beautifully. Would it be acceptable to use English? Most French don't want to hear my terrible French, but asking politely seems to score a lot of points toward goodwill. It starts things off well. Americans often think having their French corrected is rude as hell, and I try to explain to them that speaking French poorly is like stepping on the American flag. We don't have the same relationship with English, and this helps Americans put the corrections into context. The one French thing that annoys me is people telling me how to dress, wear my hair/nails, etc. In the region where I'm from, autonomy and personal expression are important. Especially as a woman, it comes across as sexist and patronizing rather than showing interest or being helpful. I read through this discussion and thought I would chime in. So I'm from GA USA, and was a waitress for 8 years and in restaurant business for 12. Luckily I'm out now. Anyway, yes, in America you should tip, but staff also need to be understanding of certain situations. Fact is, waitresses get paid $2.13 and will never even get a raise after being with a company for a while. Also, luckily there is a movement to pay staff a living wage, so this isn't a burden on the customer. But that is going to take a long time to fully catch on. Trust me, it sucks. And I think doubly so if you aren't used to this weird system. Now, in my first years of being a waitress, I would be kind of offended if I didn't get a tip from a table. You will be told, if you do a good job and get everything they need, you will be compensated. I knew what people wanted before they even asked. So if they didn't tip, it would almost hurt my feelings, like, man, I went above and beyond. But that doesn't have anything to do with it. This is more directed to Americans that know about tipping, but whether someone tips or not has more to do with the person than your service. Once I realized that, I never took it personally again, because it's not. So even if it is someone from another country who doesn't understand, it isn't personal. If there is one lesson I could pass on to another server, is this: the good will outweigh the bad. Plain and simple, I will have someone who tips me 30% and that will make up for the table that didn't tip. Can that be frustrating? Yes, but at the end of the day it will work out. I am, however, a proponent of the no-tip system. Dan Meyer is a restaurateur that is really killing it. He believes if you take care of your employees, they take care of you. So his staff is paid an hourly wage or salary, and has benefits. More people need to support these kind of restaurants and the system will change. In like 100 YRS LOL, but still change is coming. Point 1. It's hard to disagree with this given the way it is, but the solution is really obvious. Announce the price that takes the tip into account. Showing a price on the menu that is pretty much 20% less than what it actually costs if tipping is mandatory or anyway implied is just an outright lie about the prices. I would be pretty pissed to check a menu only to discover I have to pay 20% more. Tipping in Europe is a sign that the service was good and deserves a bonus. I do it even though my conviction is that it's both patronizing because they're supposed to have a living wage, and that it doesn't make sense that one profession is deemed worthy of tipping while many other service providers would never receive such attentions. Anyway, I think it's funny that I could be earning the same wage but in a different line of work and I would still be expected to pay a bonus as if I had too much money to throw around when all I wanted was to enjoy a meal outside. I think Mr. Pink pretty much nails it in Reservoir Dogs. Using slang for Indigenous people in Canada, such as Indians, natives, or other. I often hear others from outside the country, mainly those from the UK or US, use these terms. The Indigenous people, being First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, are a sensitive and important topic in Canada, especially in light of recent discoveries. There are several ways to respectfully refer to the Indigenous people. Indigenous or Aboriginal peoples is generally okay, but for specifics at the community level, go with what they are calling themselves. For example, if people are using First Nations, referring to Amjinong First Nation, it's best to use that. This applies even if it may be uncomfortable for you. For example, Indian is seen as a slur, but it's preferable for the Ozoius Indian Band, as that is what they would like to be called. Edit. I've noticed a bit of confusion on if or how native is a slang. While it's not as bad as Indian, some people still consider it offensive due to the fact that historically it was a term used to oppress and deride. However, the golden rule I guess still stands. Refer to indigenous people as how they would refer to themselves. If a community wishes to be called natives, then it's okay. However, in general conversation I would still not use it to err on safety. Indigenous or Aboriginal are still the most widely accepted words.